Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on research support for a high-potency multiple vitamin. I'm very grateful that you would spend this hour with us today. So thank you so much for joining us, and I think we'll get started right away. I hope everybody's enjoying the pandemic as much as I am. Not. Okay, so these are my introductory remarks, and that is that you often see media coverage that, studies are showing that multiple vitamins don't really do anything. They're not really helpful. But when they're looking at multiple vitamins this way, they're looking at these very low dose multiple vitamins that you would buy in a drugstore that have, 60 milligrams of vitamin C and 15 IUs of vitamin E and 2 milligrams of the B vitamins. I mean, those things are very unlikely to make a very big difference. But the research does support, if you're using meaningful doses of vitamins and minerals that are really targeted to what the research shows, then you actually start to see very significant clinical outcomes. And so that's what I want to present to you today, is the peer-reviewed clinical studies that we have showing that meaningful doses of vitamins and minerals taken on a daily basis can actually have a tremendous impact on people's health in terms of preventing problems and helping to improve outcomes for some existing health conditions. And it's from this research over the years that I put together the Adëeva high potency multivitamin, which I will show you at the end. So let's start with free radicals and antioxidants. So, just in normal metabolism, as your body's generating energy, as the hydrogen electrons are moving down the cytochrome chain in the mitochondria, some electrons are leaking out of the chain and into a very oxygen-rich environment, and so they form, with oxygen, the superoxide anion, which is a very reactive free radical or reactive oxygen species that can do a lot of damage. Then sometimes two of those superoxide anions will attach together to form hydrogen peroxide. And then in the presence of a transition metal like iron, it'll form two hydroxy radicals. Well, these are the types of free radicals the body's making all the time. And so there's always this background free radical damage happening to our tissues. Then, of course, you can make it worse by exposing yourself to other free radicals from polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and heterocyclic amines, nitrosamines, alcohol, cigarette smoke, things in air pollution, radiation, including ultraviolet radiation from the sun affecting the eyes and the skin. And so you see all the different sources of free radicals that the body's dealing with at any given time. Irradiation, possibly cigarette smoke or secondhand smoke, air pollution, environmental toxins, things that we're ingesting. Even the inflammatory process generates free radicals that can damage tissue. And here's the cellular metabolism I was talking about, where hydrogen electrons are being converted. 2 to 5% of them, as they go down the electron transfer chain, they leak out of the mitochondrial membrane and they react with oxygen to form these reactive oxygen species. So there's always some background level of free radical damage going on that's causing corrosion to our tissues. And the tissues that get affected, that are damaged by free radicals, are our DNA. So it can lead to aging of the DNA. But some of the mutations can lead to base pair mutations where you're actually increasing the risk of cancer. You also can damage the mitochondria itself and the mitochondrial DNA, so your mitochondria don't work as well, so you can't produce energy as well as you get older because of mitochondrial dysfunction. You can damage enzymes in the cell, you damage the cell membrane. If you cause free radical damage to the cholesterol in your bloodstream, the LDL, it sticks to the walls of the artery and you have more atherosclerosis. Also, ultraviolet light from the sun can damage the lens of the eye, causing cataracts. And behind the eye, around the optic nerve, it can cause macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of blindness in people over the age of 55. And the brain uses 20% of the body's oxygen at any given time, so it generates a lot of free radicals. Over time, it leads to a corrosive effect that impacts dementia and many neurodegenerative diseases, as I'm about to show you. And of course, ultraviolet light affecting the skin can cause skin wrinkles and also, of course, skin cancer. So are there studies where people take antioxidants which quench these free radicals and sort of push them back, try to contain the free radical damage that's going on? If you take antioxidants at meaningful doses, has it been shown to be helpful? And the answer is yes. So the first study I want to show you here is the Alzheimer's Cooperative study back in the year 2000. They took Alzheimer's patients who were in early stage disease. They gave a certain group of them 2,000 IUs of vitamin E every day versus placebo. And the group that got the vitamin E, it significantly slowed the progression of the disease versus the placebo, because a lot of what's happening in Alzheimer's disease is related to oxidative stress and free radicals. It's not the whole thing that's happening, but it's part of it. And sometimes you see studies where vitamin E can cause heart disease and cancer. These are older people taking high doses of vitamin E. It did not increase the risk of heart disease or cancer. It's a totally ridiculous statement. Then in 2009, they wanted to confirm what they saw in the first study. So they said, let's take Alzheimer's patients again, almost 850 of them, and let's give half of them vitamin E, 1,000 IUs twice a day. Let's give another half of them vitamin E plus standard Alzheimer's drugs. And let's give another group of them, no treatment whatsoever. So here's what happens. The group that got the vitamin E, it reduced their mortality by 23% compared to the other groups. The group that got the drug, they actually had an increased mortality. But the group that got the vitamin E with the Alzheimer's drug actually did the best. They had a 30% reduction in mortality. So I'm being told that you can't see my slides. I don't know why that is. Arlene, are you listening in?
Yes, I am.
Can you see my slides?
No.
Oh my goodness. Why is that?
I don't know.
I've chosen the right screen. How about now?
There we go. Yep.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, everyone. Okay. So we're in this study that started back here. The 2009 study where they're giving people vitamin E or the Alzheimer's drug or, the combination, or they're giving them nothing. And the group that does the best is the group that gets the vitamin E with the Alzheimer's drug. So it tells you that vitamin E is even safe to take if you're an Alzheimer's patient and you're on the standard drugs, and the outcomes have been better. Then with macular degeneration, so macular degeneration is the leading cause of blindness in people over the age of 55. So there was this large ARED study, this sort of eye disease study back in 2001 by the National Eye Institute. They said it looks like a lot of macular degeneration is caused by free radical damage to the back of the eye around the optic nerve. So this is a large double-blind placebo-controlled study of over 3,000 people with early stage macular degeneration, and they tried different combinations. And what they saw was that participants with the best results were given antioxidants, vitamin C at 500 milligrams, vitamin E at 400 IUs, beta-carotene, zinc, copper. And the results indicate that zinc plus antioxidants significantly slowed the progression of their disease. And so that's why if you go into a drugstore today, you'll see into health food stores, you'll see supplements like OptiVite and OptiVision and all that. And it's actually, those supplements are derived from these studies. But in our high potency multivitamin, we cover the gamut of things that are necessary, and then we go beyond that. Same with cataracts. Studies are showing that higher intakes and blood levels of vitamin C and selenium are linked to decreased risk of developing cataracts. And one study showed that adults who use vitamin C and E supplements for more than 10 years decreased the progression of their nuclear cataracts, because you're slowing down free radical damage in the lens of the eye. Now, a one-a-day multi or Centrum with low doses of C and E are not going to give you that kind of an outcome. Then in Parkinson's disease, we know that there's a lot of different moving parts in Parkinson's disease, but there is a lot of free radical damage that's going on in the basal ganglia. So we know that free radicals contribute to the progression and possibly part of the cause of Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative conditions. So here's a 10-year study where they gave early stage Parkinson's disease vitamin C and vitamin E at pretty high doses. And it showed that it actually delayed the need for drug therapy by an average of 2.5 years. So it slowed down some of the free radical damage in the brain. so that they had better quality of life for a longer period of time. But what's more important to me is how do you prevent it? Some studies are showing that supplementation with vitamin C and vitamin E are associated with a decreased risk of developing Parkinson's disease in the very first place. Now, 1 in 500 Canadians actually develop Parkinson's disease in their lifetime. So I've included all the references here in the slides. I'll be happy to send these slides to you. You can go and do your own independent research on this. But these diseases have a major free radical component. And when you help to contain some of the free radical damage going on, outcomes are better, and often the risk of developing the problem in the first place is significantly less. What about vitamin C? Well, it's more than just an antioxidant, but studies indicate that the suboptimal vitamin C levels, which is known as hypovitamin C, is identified as a plasma vitamin C level less than 23 millimoles per liter. That should actually be micromoles. So I'll just change that, which is actually very common in Western society. And a vitamin C deficiency is where you're under 11, and that should be micromoles per liter. So you have to change that again, sorry. But the 2007 to 2010 U.S. National Health and Nutrition Examination surveys of approximately 16,000 children and adults found that almost 40% of people have low levels of vitamin C, and 88% of the U.S. population don't meet the daily requirement for vitamin E, which enhances vitamin C function. So vitamin C and vitamin E work synergistically because they can recycle each other back to active forms of the antioxidant. But what's really important to know here is that the ingestion of 250 milligrams per day of vitamin C in otherwise healthy people has been shown to enhance many aspects of immune function. You can't get 250 milligrams of vitamin C from food. It's very hard to do that. And from a low dose multiple vitamin, you're not going to get 250 milligrams of vitamin C. The goal is actually to have a blood vitamin C level that's at or above 50 micromoles per liter. That's where you start to have more optimal vitamin C function. To do that, you need at least 100 to 250 milligrams of vitamin C a day. And then if there's other compounding factors, you're going to need more than that. So as we get older, immune system function declines. Some studies suggest that the combination of 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day and 200 IUs of vitamin E per day improves immune function in people over the age of 60. So as you get older, you need higher doses. In our high potency multivitamin, you get the 1,000 IUs of vitamin C right in that product, and you get 400 IUs of vitamin E right in that product. Studies have shown that when fighting the common cold, supplementation with 200 milligrams a day of vitamin C helps to reduce the severity and duration and the incidence of the common cold if you're exposed to physical stress. This level of vitamin C intake may also reduce common cold frequency if you previously had low vitamin C blood levels below 45 micromoles per liter. Very importantly, higher levels at 1,000 milligrams a day has been shown to prevent the decline in vitamin C depletion within white blood cells during an infection. Here's a quote from a really important research paper regarding lung infections and pneumonia and vitamin C. The researchers say, beneficial effects of vitamin C on recovery have been noted in pneumonia. In elderly people hospitalized because of pneumonia who were determined to have very low vitamin C levels, administration of vitamin C reduced the respiratory symptom score in the more severe cases. In other pneumonia patients, low-dose vitamin C of up to 800 milligrams a day reduced the hospital stay by 19% compared to no vitamin C supplementation, whereas higher dose up to 1,600 milligrams a day reduced the hospital stay by 36%. And it wasn't just the person subjectively felt better. The vitamin C supplementation group showed a positive effect on normalizing the chest x-ray, reduced temperature, and decreased erythrocyte sedimentation rate. So vitamin C supplementation is huge for immunity, and people don't get enough from food. Most people walk around with low blood levels. People need at least 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day, especially during the pandemic. What about vitamin E? Well, they've done vitamin E to see if it helps to prevent cancer, and they say, no, it doesn't really help. In fact, it might make things worse because they don't use the form of vitamin E that actually has the vitamin E anti-cancer properties, which is vitamin E succinate. Take a look at the multivitamin that we created. It has vitamin E succinate in it. The most studied member of vitamin E with respect to cancer is actually vitamin E succinate. Studies have demonstrated that vitamin E succinate is a potent growth inhibitor of a wide variety of epithelial cancer types, including prostate, breast, lung, colon, cervical, endometrial, as well as many hematopoietic lymphoid leukemias, lymphoma, and melanoma in vitro. In fact, at least 50 types of cancer cell lines tested so far, these are human cancer cell lines, have shown a high level of apoptosis. That means programmed cell death when challenged with vitamin E succinate for different types of cancer. So what I want to get to is that studies show that vitamin E succinate, the way that it works is only vitamin E succinate gets into the mitochondria and it targets the second cytochrome in the respiratory chain, and it basically disrupts it so the electrons can't flow down the electron cytochrome chain, so you can't produce energy. If the cell can't produce energy, it undergoes apoptosis or programmed cell death. The evidence on this is so strong that a few years ago, they said, let's test it, because we saw experimentally that vitamin E succinate inhibits and gets cells to commit suicide that are mesothelioma cells, a type of lung cancer due to asbestos exposure. So they said, let's try it on a patient to see if it helps. So they took an individual who had mesothelioma. There's no medical treatment for mesothelioma that's effective. They gave the patient vitamin E succinate at a specific dosage, and they saw that over time that the tumors in the lung on CAT scan were actually shrinking, and the person's outcomes were doing better. So as a result of that, they have set up a very large study now with mesothelioma cases, and we're waiting to see what the outcomes are. But vitamin E succinate is the only form of vitamin E that's actually been shown to have anti-cancer behaviors. And the way that it works, as I was showing you earlier, suggesting earlier, is that it through its effects down through the caspase enzymes, it induces apoptosis via a number of receptors on the cell surface and then also within the cytoplasm of the cell. It also upregulates tumor suppressor gene p53, tumor suppressor gene, which also is going to induce apoptosis of emerging cancer cells. So in a multimodal way, vitamin E succinate has these effects. So the multiple vitamin you want to take every day, if you want to have vitamin E in it, it should be vitamin E succinate. It has to be a meaningful dose. 400 IUs a day is a meaningful dose of vitamin E. What about breast cancer survivors? Is there any evidence that if they take vitamin C and vitamin E antioxidants, that they get better outcomes, less recurrence, and better quality of life? There's 3 gigantic studies that have shown this. The first one was in 2011. They looked at breast cancer patients, a large group of them, 2-year follow-up studies, and you can see that the women in the top 25% following a healthy lifestyle who regularly took a multivitamin supplement had 60 to 70% reduction in the risk of dying from any cause during the study. So it was the addition of the multivitamin and mineral that actually gave them the outcome, because the women who didn't take a multivitamin didn't get that additional benefit. In 2012, we have what's called the LACE study, which is Life After Cancer Epidemiology. These are breast cancer patients. They followed almost 2,300 of them. These are from the Kaiser Permanente, Northern California, and also from Utah in the cancer registry. The results showed that with average 5-year follow-up, the frequent use of vitamin C and vitamin E in the period following breast cancer diagnosis was associated with decreased likelihood of recurrence. We also observed that frequent use of vitamin C and vitamin E after diagnosis was associated with reduced risk of all-cause mortality, death from all causes, in these women with breast cancer, including preventing breast cancer recurrence. Only the women who chose to be on vitamin C and vitamin E supplements, and they weren't taking 60 milligrams a day and 15 IUs a day. They were taking meaningful doses of C and E. Then the Shanghai Breast Cancer Survival Study has showed exactly the same thing. Almost 5,000 breast cancer survivors looking to see if vitamin C, vitamin E, or multivitamins had an effect. The results showed after 4 years, women who used antioxidants, E, C, and multivitamins had an 18% reduced mortality risk and a 22% reduced recurrence risk. The inverse association was found regardless of whether the vitamin was used concurrently with chemotherapy or after the therapy. So, but they shouldn't take these vitamins if they're having radiation therapy, only with chemotherapy. So what women are told is not to use any antioxidants during chemotherapy because it might actually make their results worse. But here's a study showing that advice is actually wrong. So we need more evidence to really support this view, but we certainly see that in breast cancer survivors, the ones using antioxidants like vitamin C and vitamin E at meaningful doses are doing better in terms of prevention of recurrence and progression of the disease and also all-cause mortality. So that's just free radicals and antioxidants. What about B vitamins? I'm speaking very quickly because there's a lot to cover here. What about B vitamins? Well, the Oxford project to investigate memory and aging, huge study. They wanted to understand, they knew that B vitamins played a very important role in lowering homocysteine. We know that homocysteine can damage the brain. So they took 168 of these older individuals, older than 70 years old, gave them three B vitamins, folic acid, B12, and vitamin B6 at significant and meaningful doses from supplementation versus the placebo. What they wanted to see is that can it slow down the rate at which the brain is atrophying as you get older, the brain shrinking. On average, B vitamins slowed the rate of brain atrophy by 30%, in some cases up to 53%. And we know that a greater rate of atrophy is associated with decreased cognitive test scores. So by slowing down atrophy of the brain, you preserve brain function to a large degree. Folic acid and B6 and B12 also are important in preventing the rise in homocysteine. We know that high homocysteine levels can actually cause brain damage and atrophy. And B vitamins like this are needed for neurotransmitter synthesis. So the brain can keep making the neurotransmitters for cognition and for other purposes. What we know is that over the age of 60, most people who don't have any brain impairment of any kind still have a shrinkage of their brain by 0.5% a year. If you have mild cognitive impairment, the brain shrinkage is 1%. If you have Alzheimer's degree, the rate of brain atrophy is 2.5%. So if you can slow that down, that's meaningful. Thus far, there are no drugs that can do this. Only B vitamin supplementation has been shown to slow brain atrophy in aging persons. Now, B vitamin supplementation is most effective in those that had a high homocysteine level. That's about a third of the population. And when you combine it with omega-3 fats in this study, the person actually, the outcomes were even better. What about niacin, vitamin B3? It has an important effect on the brain. So niacin's needed to make ATP energy in all your cells because it becomes NAD. But what's not appreciated is that niacin also preserves the tau protein that holds the microtubules together in the brain neurons. So I'll show you what the microtubules are in a moment, but they're basically the little tubules that allow proteins to go from the nucleus down through the axon to keep the axon alive and functioning normally. And one of the things that happens in Alzheimer's disease is the microtubules break down and you form neurofibrillary tangles and the patient dies. So the early evidence for this was from the Rush Institute of Health Aging study in Chicago, where they looked at almost 3,000 people who were older residents in 3 Chicago neighborhoods for more than 5 years. And they also performed neurocognitive tests on over 800 of them. They found that those who got the least niacin were 70% more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease than the group that got the highest amount. So the group that was getting the highest amount were getting a minimum of 45 milligrams a day. You can't get that from food. You can't get that from a low-dose multivitamin. These are people who are buying, B50 complex vitamins like we have in our multivitamin. The benefits of higher niacin intake began in women and then who are just getting above 17 milligrams a day, which you still are not going to get from food. But it became really significant once you got to 45 milligrams a day. So here is what happens. So if you look at an axon here of a nerve in the brain, these are microtubules that sort of send the little peptides down from the nucleus. So if you blow up the microtubule, see these little blue beams here that are sticking out? These are the tau protein, and they need niacin to support their stability and synthesis. And so what happens when your niacin levels are not optimal as you get older, the risk is that the microtubules break down and they form neurofibrillary tangles. The microtubules break down and you can't transfer information properly along the axon and the nerve dies. That's one of the major features of Alzheimer's when it becomes more advanced. So they did animal studies recently as well, and they showed the same thing. If you breed animals to have Alzheimer's disease and you deprive them of niacin, the Alzheimer's incidence is very high. But if you give them high doses of niacin to preserve the tau protein, then the tau protein doesn't break down and the animals don't develop the cognitive impairment. Giving them the nicotinamide supplementation improve many aspects of memory and cognitive performance. So because these animals were very prone to Alzheimer's disease, just the way they were bred, the amount of niacin that it took to preserve the tau protein in these high-risk animals, the human equivalent would be 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. That's a very, very high dose. High doses of niacin can actually cause some liver damage. So you can't just be giving these high doses to your patients indiscriminately. I'm just showing this research because I want you to see that these nutrients are meaningful, but you have to get them in at meaningful doses. What we're seeing is that to help prevent the tau protein breakdown in humans, you want to be getting at least 45 milligrams a day of niacin. You need a B50 complex basically to do that. Then with respect to folic acid and B12 as they affect depression and anxiety and schizophrenia and birth defects and cancer prevention, there's a very important pathway that I want to point out here. When folic acid enters the body, in order for the cells to use it, folic acid has to go down all these steps to become 5-methyl folate. We'll just call it 5-methylfolate. But this enzyme known as the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, this enzyme in 60% of Caucasians there's polymorphism. That means that the body doesn't make it that well. But if you give extra folic acid, it improves the function of the enzyme and you can make this form of folate or of folic acid. And this form of folate is critical because here it is over here. So here's the folate coming into the body. Here's the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme, allowing it to become the methylated form of folic acid. That methyl group is then handed to vitamin B12 and methionine synthase to form methionine from homocysteine. From there, you make S-adenosylmethionine. So you need that form of folic acid and B12 and these enzymes working properly to make S-adenosylmethionine. And then that methyl group can be handed to methylate DNA to make the neurotransmitters in the brain. This is important for mental health, to make certain phospholipids, to make creatine for detoxification purposes, and for women to actually have children that don't have spinal birth defects. That's why women take extra folic acid when they're pregnant. But look at in the brain, all the different places where you need it to make neurotransmitters like adrenaline and noradrenaline and dopamine. You need folic acid here. You need folic acid here. You need vitamin B6 here. You need vitamin C here. Here's S-adenosylmethionine. You need folic acid and B12 for this reaction. So you need to be able to make that S-adenosylmethionine. Same for serotonin and melatonin. Here's folic acid is required to make, this is tetrahydrobioterin. You need folic acid for this. This is a decarboxylation reaction. You need vitamin B6 here. Here's, you need pantothenic acid here, and here's S-adenosylmethionine. So we're seeing that as many people have this methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme polymorphism, and it increases their likelihood of mental health issues. And sometimes they don't respond to their drugs well enough for depression and anxiety. And giving them folic acid and B12 often can be a very big help. So the addition of 400 micrograms a day of folic acid and 50 micrograms a day of B12, 50 milligrams of B6 a day can help the body recycle homocysteine, make more S-adenosylmethionine, and overcome some of this mild genetic susceptibility to a defect that many people have. And B12 is in the same category. We see that vitamin B12, especially as people get older, a lot of people run out of vitamin B12. And the reason is you absorb it less as you get older because you make less stomach acid, so you secrete less intrinsic factor, which you need to absorb B12. A lot of older people are on antacids and proton pump inhibitors, which are decreasing their acidity even further, including histamine blockers. And so the liver stores about 2 to 3 years worth of vitamin B12, but slowly over time, the person will use that up. And then they go into an early stage vitamin B12 deficiency. And the first thing that shows up in a vitamin B12 deficiency are personality changes, depression, and memory loss. In fact, 1/3 of geriatric hospitalized patients who are admitted for depression show low blood levels of vitamin B12 upon hospital admission. And giving people B12 or these B vitamins has been shown to actually help them overcome and improve mental function and reverse depression in clinical trials. So you see the references there. Here's a report in the New York Times of a woman. Her mother was 85 years old, showing signs of Alzheimer's disease. The doctor put the mother on an Alzheimer's drug. The person actually got worse instead of better. But the doctor had the good sense to test the woman's B12 blood level, saw that it was low, gave her vitamin B12 injections. Lo and behold, her memory came back, her personality came back, and her depression was improved. So these things are slipping through the cracks all the time. You need S-adenosylmethionine to methylate the cytosine residues at certain parts on your DNA chain. If you don't have enough methylation methyl groups on the targeted cytosine residues, you end up in a state of what's called hypomethylation, which is highly linked to cancer. So a lot of cancer occurs because people don't ingest enough folic acid or have sufficient vitamin B12 status. They don't form S-adenosylmethionine. And so what happens is when you methylate these segments of the DNA, it inactivates the genes, so the cells are not dividing and dividing and dividing. When you have hypomethylation, the cell starts to divide at a faster rate and it forms more genetic mutations. You get genomic instability, which leads to an increased risk of cancer. So lots of evidence shows this, that hypomethylation leads to cancer production because cells are dividing and the genome becomes very, very unstable. When you methylate the DNA at the right parts of the cytosine residues, you silence certain genes so that the cell is not dividing in a way that is abnormal. And a lot of people are walking around in a hypo state in terms of not enough folic acid daily, because you can't store folic acid. You have to get it every single day. With B12, you can store it, but over time, often people run into deficiencies. What about vitamin D? Well, the ideal range for vitamin D for immunity and for osteoporosis prevention and to prevent cancer and MS, you need to have a blood range that's at 75 to 85 nanomoles per liter, up to 150 nanomoles per liter. We think that is actually the sweet spot. 68% of Canadians have a vitamin D level below 50. The evidence shows that even with 1,000 IUs a day, which we have in our multivitamin, gets people from below 50 often to over 75 nanomoles per liter a day. Some people will need a little bit more vitamin D than that, but it's very inexpensive to add it. Of course, during October to May, you can't make it, even on a sunny day, you can't make vitamin D in your skin. So Canadians are very, very susceptible. Now, the maximum amount of vitamin D that Health Canada allows you to put into a multiple vitamin is 1,000 IUs of vitamin D, or I would have put even more in there. But vitamin D blood levels above 75 nanomoles per liter are associated with decreased acute respiratory distress syndrome in children, less pulmonary infections, faster recovery from respiratory infections in adults, and improved immunity across the board, because vitamin D is required for macrophages and other cells to make cathelicidin and defenses and other molecules that actually are used by immune cells to ward off infections right at point of contact. Now, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do a whole webinar just on nutrients and immunity, which we'll get into the more details on this. But we've seen in COVID-19 patients where if they have low blood vitamin D levels, the outcomes are much worse. And we recently saw in Spain, which I'll cover for you next time, a supplementation study of COVID patients entering the hospital, given vitamin D supplements in a random way. The ones that got the vitamin D, no deaths, very few had to ever go to even intensive care. Hospital admissions are much shorter. So now they're doing a very large scale study with vitamin D. But we saw this in recent months where the vitamin D status of a mother during the second trimester of pregnancy affects the child's IQ when you test them when they're 4 to 6 years old. And that's because vitamin D crosses the placenta and the fetal brain at just the 12th week after conception is already expressing vitamin D receptors. Vitamin D is required for the development of the brain. So 13% of white U.S. pregnant women and 80% of black U.S. pregnant women show vitamin D levels below 50 nanomoles per liter during the second trimester of pregnancy, which puts them at risk for having children whose IQ is significantly lower. So the recommendation now is for all women who are pregnant to get, or who want to get pregnant, to get their vitamin D blood tested. But throughout your entire life, you need to have a blood vitamin D level that's above 50 or 75 nanomoles per liter, because it's also associated with decreased osteoporosis and fractures, onset of multiple sclerosis, diabetes, heart disease, helps to keep blood pressure lower, Alzheimer's risk is lower, all of these different things, Parkinson's disease, decreased influenza, decreased risk even of macular degeneration. I'm not making this up. I'm providing the references for you if you want to go and read about the impact that these nutrients have if you get them into the body at meaningful doses. What about calcium? Well, the National Health and Nutrition Examination surveys show that 42% of Americans, and same with Canadians, don't get the required amount of calcium each day. So you see, most people are missing about 500 milligrams a day. That's the amount that I put into the Adëeva high potency multivitamin, because when you get it, it helps you get into these higher ranges, which are really related to decreasing risk of osteoporosis and osteopenia. So most adults are not getting the recommended amount of calcium, but 500 milligrams can make a huge difference. And the other thing to know about this is that studies published recently, when you look at all the meta-analysis, you see that for every 300 milligrams of calcium a person ingests, it reduces the risk of colon cancer by 8 to 9%. So helping people get 1,200 milligrams a day through food and supplementation. So the average person, if they're getting, 600 or 700 milligrams from food, and we give them another 500 from our multivitamin, they get to 1,200 milligrams a day. It reduces the risk of colon cancer by 32 to 36%. You're saying, well, how is that possible? It's because the calcium that you don't absorb that stays in the gut slows down the rate of cell division of the intestinal epithelial cells. And when you slow down the cell division rate, you don't form mutations as well. Also, the calcium in the gut will bind with bile acids, so they can't be converted into secondary sterols, which are known to cause cancer to develop in the colonic epithelial cells. We understand the mechanism how calcium prevents colon cancer. Colon cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in our society. These nutrients are vitally important to get at the ideal range. Of course, when you ingest lutein, it goes to the back of the eye. It forms a free radical shield around at the macula lutea. The yellow tinge that you see when you look through an ophthalmoscope at the back of the eye, that yellow tinge that you're seeing, that pigment is from lutein. And the more lutein you get, the thicker is the antioxidant defense, so you don't damage the optic nerve. Dr. Johannes Seddon at Harvard University says that 6 milligrams per day of lutein has led to 43% lower risk of macular degeneration. We have lutein in our multivitamin. And what about lycopene and prostate cancer? All kinds of studies show that in a linear fashion, as you increase your lycopene intake, you decrease your risk of prostate cancer significantly. So because they saw all the mechanisms through which lycopene can reduce prostate cancer risk, there have been 6 studies so far where they took individuals who had localized prostate cancer or more advanced prostate cancer or precancerous conditions in their prostate gland, and they gave them lycopene supplementation at different doses. And in every case, these are the studies, I will send you these slides, in every single case, the outcomes were the group that got the lycopene did better, slowed the progression of the disease, brought the PSA down, improved outcomes, even in complicated cases of prostate cancer where you have androgen-independent prostate cancer. You can read the studies for yourself. And the experimental studies say that lycopene probably also has a protective effect in terms of lung cancer, esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, colorectal, pancreatic, breast, and also cervix. Everybody needs to get that extra lycopene. Most people don't get enough from food. I put 6 milligrams right in the Adëeva multivitamin. What about zinc? 55% of US adults don't ingest the zinc that's required. Same in Canada. And you don't store zinc. You store iron in your liver, but you don't store zinc. You have to get the optimal amount every day. 30% of elderly patients, individuals, are already mild to moderate zinc deficiency. And just shows you that with the blood tests, it shows you with the blood markers. Most people don't do a blood test for zinc, but if you did, it would have to be around 100 micrograms per deciliter, give or take 10. Values below 80 are a moderate deficiency. Below 50, you've got a very severe zinc deficiency. The recommended amount is 15 milligrams a day, which I agree with. In North America, adults get about 11 milligrams a day from food, and older people over the age of 7 are only getting 8 milligrams a day. So the chronic, just suboptimal intake of zinc over your lifetime leads to immune suppression. So the immune system can't work nearly as well. You become immune compromised just from that alone. What else? You can't taste your food well enough. You have less dark adaptation. Your lean mass gets catabolized, and your wounds don't heal very well. What do older people tell you as patients? I'm more prone to getting sick. I don't taste my food as well. If I bang my arm and I get a bruise, it stays there for 3 or 4 months. Right? These are signs of marginal zinc deficiency. Just a simple multivitamin with 15 milligrams of zinc a day reverses the whole clinical picture. And here are the references for zinc. I'm not pulling this stuff out of the sky. And these are recent references. And for selenium, they say that most people get the selenium that the government recommends, but that amount of selenium at 55 micrograms a day, it's probably not the ideal amount of selenium. Studies have shown that higher blood levels of selenium and toenail concentrations of selenium. Why would they look at toenail concentrations? Because the amount of selenium in your toenails is a really good snapshot of your long-term intake of selenium. They're associated with decreased cancer at various tissue sites. Individuals taking 200 micrograms a day of selenium per day were often those that had the most ideal blood and toenail levels. So in our multivitamin, we have 200 micrograms of selenium. There have been some clinical challenge studies with selenium that have been a bit disappointing, but overall, selenium compounds have shown tremendous promise as anti-cancer nutrients. And I believe that 200 micrograms of selenium is highly meaningful for most people. It's well below any level that's going to produce toxicity. See, and the reason I say that is because the selenium experimental studies are incredible. They're showing all the effects, including heightening immune system function, stabilizing DNA, inducing apoptosis of human cancer cell lines, cutting off the blood supply from tumors so they can't metastasize. I mean, it just does so many different things that getting that extra selenium seems to be a logical thing. And we'll talk about more about the selenium studies on COVID-19 patients in a couple of weeks at the next webinar. Vitamin A, most people are not getting the amount of vitamin A that they should be getting for all the different functions that it does, immunity and for vision and dark adaptation and growth and differentiation, preventing cancer from developing. But the vitamin A is a bit tricky, of course, because if you get too much vitamin A, it leads to liver damage, and it also leads to osteoporosis and bone fractures. So you can't be giving people high doses of preformed vitamin A. Remember that 1/6 of all the beta-carotene that you consume, the body can convert it into vitamin A if you need it. But if you don't need that vitamin A, it'll stay as beta-carotene and have its own independent antioxidant properties as beta-carotene and its own anti-cancer properties as beta-carotene in terms of reversing. We've seen it reverse certain precancerous conditions like leukoplakia and cervical dysplasia. So at the end of the day, you want to get a safe amount of vitamin A, no more than 2,500 IUs a day of preformed vitamin A from a multivitamin. And you can, I put 15,000 IUs of beta carotene into our multi because that's a reasonably safe thing to do. What about chromium? Evidence suggests most people get the chromium that the government says is beneficial, but that level is not high enough from the studies we have from Richard Anderson showing that when you give people additional chromium at 50 to 100 or even 200 micrograms a day, that it improves insulin receptor function, lowers their blood glucose, improves insulin function, helps to decrease hemoglobin A1C, and improve glucose regulation. In our world of this epidemic of type 2 diabetics, that additional 50 micrograms of chromium is a great baseline level that people should get each day to improve their insulin function. What about magnesium? Well, it does all these incredible things. Everyone knows magnesium is a wonderful mineral that has over 200 enzymes alone use magnesium, and it easily gets depleted by stress, alcohol, caffeine, exercise, refined sugars. Most people don't get the magnesium that is recommended from government agencies, which you see as 420 milligrams for men and 320 milligrams for women. And men older than 70 and teenage girls and boys are most likely to have very low magnesium intakes. When the amount of magnesium you'll get from food and dietary supplements is combined, so a lot of people take magnesium supplements in some form, either a multivitamin or as part of calcium magnesium supplements. When they get that, they often get their magnesium into the more ideal range. More recently, we've seen that magnesium may help to lower the incidence of stroke by 2% for every 200 milligrams that a person is consuming. But here's what really caught my eye this year, is this review of all the studies looking at colon cancer prevention. that was published just a couple of months ago in the British medical journal Gut. It said that regarding protection against colon cancer, just getting magnesium intake above 255 milligrams a day, or at least 255 milligrams a day, that alone was associated with a 22% lower risk of developing colorectal cancer. We've never seen that before. So that's because in our multivitamin, there's 200 milligrams of magnesium to at least, so from food alone, you're going to get way beyond that amount. But then they showed other things like the role of folic acid, and eating dairy products is protected because you're getting the calcium that does all those great things that we talked about. Eating more fiber is helpful. Soybeans are helpful. The factors that increase colorectal cancer: red meat, processed meat, all the things that you've seen over the years that can be harmful, including alcohol. So as we start to wind down here, I want to show you the Adëeva High Potency, or the Adëeva All-in-One multivitamin that I put together, because it's everything in one bottle. 2,500 IUs of vitamin A, so you don't give anybody vitamin A toxicity. That's very important. 15,000 IUs of beta-carotene. So you're taking 2 capsules twice a day, because you couldn't put this all in one caplet, or you wouldn't be able to swallow it. The government would not allow a caplet that big anyway. So you're taking 2 caplets twice a day. So over the course of the day, you're getting your 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C in 2 divided doses of 500 milligrams. There's the 1,000 IUs of vitamin D. Here's the 400 IUs of vitamin E succinate, the anti-cancer form of vitamin E. Here's the B50 complex, so you're completely covered with all those B vitamins that we saw were doing all those great things. Here's the 500 milligrams of elemental calcium, a little bit of iron, not enough to be toxic. There's the 200 milligrams of magnesium, the 15 milligrams of zinc, the 200 micrograms of selenium, the little bit of copper. There's the manganese that you need to activate the superoxide dismutase enzyme. Here's the 50 micrograms of chromium, molybdenum for detoxification, bioflavonoids, lutein, and lycopene at 6 milligrams. So if you were to go out, a person buys a multivitamin, a regular multivitamin, and then they want to get this added protection, they'd have to go and buy extra C and extra E and extra selenium and a B50 complex, and some maybe lycopene and lutein, extra calcium. They're buying 8 different vitamin bottles to get what we're giving people in one bottle. That's antioxidants enriched, a B50 complex, 500 milligrams of elemental calcium, 1,000 IUs of vitamin D, and everything you need from vitamin A to zinc, plus bioflavonoids, lutein, and lycopene. And the form of vitamin E is vitamin E succinate. Go and try and find a multivitamin in the marketplace that's using vitamin E succinate. Good luck. You won't find one. So that's one bottle instead of 8 bottles, and it's more economical for the person to purchase. So it's practical. They only have to have one bottle as opposed to 8. So the compliance is automatically going to be better. Number 2, it's more cost effective, a little over $1 a day. They have everything they need in one bottle. They just take 2 caplets